Hi everyone, it seems that everything just perfect. Can see you. All right, let's begin. Hi everyone, welcome to the iSpring webinar series where every week we talk about e-learning trends, share iSpring tips and tricks, and cover clients' cases. My name is Nadia. I'm a community manager at iSpring and I will be the moderator for today's session. And today we are going to cover a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about how to become an instructional designer. And to cover this topic, we invited Cara North, a learning development director, speaker, and researcher. Hi, Cara. Thank a lot for tuning in. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm fine and very excited about today's presentation. But before I pass the mic over to you, I want to cover a couple of technical points. I have great news for e-learning specialists of any experience level. We are conducting our first ever online conference on e-learning, and you're more than welcome to join us. So it's an online two-day conference packed with free lectures, practical workshops, and case studies on the e-learning essentials. And interested experts will guide you through all the ins and outs of getting your e-learning programs up and running and then talking into the next level. So it's all from me, and I'm more than welcome to pass the mic over to you, Cara, to start the presentation.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. Looks like there's a lot of great participation. Before we get started, and as I'm switching over to share my screen, I'd love to know where you're joining from. So if you want to say where you're at in the chat and give me a moment to share my screen, that would be amazing. So hold on just one moment. Oh, someone asked where I'm joining from. I'm joining from Columbus, Ohio in the United States. And I saw a really quick nod to my salad fingers and Squidward. You have very good taste, Victoria, if you know what that is. So thank you. All right, so I'm excited to talk to you all today about becoming an instructional designer this year. I'm assuming if you are here, you are interested in learning more about the profession and what it takes to transition. I know especially if you are a teacher, it's getting close to summertime for you, and hopefully you'll have some time off to think about, is this something that you'd like to do, and I'd like to set you up for success. So I always like to start with giving you information on what to expect today. So here is kind of the broad agenda of everything that we're going to cover. So I'm going to spend some time talking a little bit about the history of instructional design. I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I think it's just really important to understand how the profession has kind of grown, especially in the last 30 years. There's been so much change in instructional design. Just to give you some good idea about the roots of it, because I realize not everyone is formally educated in instructional design. Then I'm going to spend some time talking about how teachers can be great instructional designers, but if you're not a teacher, no worries. When we talk about a lot of transferable skills, it's going to set you up for success. Third part is I want to talk a little bit about what are employers actually looking for. So I have applied for jobs, and I am also a hiring manager. So I've been on both sides of the equation, and I've actually even done some academic research about the topic. I analyzed a lot of job postings and really kind of boiled down what is it that job, employers are looking for in the job market. And finally, the best part, answering all of your questions. So drop your favorite emoji in the chat if you are ready to go. And I'm sad today is not Wednesday because my favorite emoji is the camel. So, all right, I got some really good emojis coming in. Excellent. All right. I really don't like doing this, so I'm going to spend a really short amount of time on this particular topic, but I realize that you may not know who I am, and I just want to share with you my expertise because you may be wondering, who is this woman and why is she talking about this topic? So I want to share a little bit about my background. So I started back in the Stone Age when Amazon actually sold these things called books as an instructional designer there. I fell into the profession. I didn't even know this was a profession. I started working in call centers and hated it very quickly. But then after I got promoted and did my first training, I realized that like that's what I want to do the rest of my life. So when I was at Amazon, I designed various learning experiences for our customer service agents. That is an actual picture of the building that I worked in. So that is the actual office that I worked in for Amazon. And I did a little bit of everything. I did some learning management system administration. I did some face-to-face training. I built e-learning without an e-learning authoring tool. Yes, we're talking about a pre-articulate storyline in Captivate days, if you can believe it. And I really enjoyed that work. And then I did something really, really, really silly and stupid. I fell in love with someone. So I moved to a different part of the United States to be with my partner. And I became a senior learning experience designer at the Ohio State University. So I started in corporate, I transitioned into higher education, and in higher education, I also got to do a lot of really neat things. I did more LMS administration. I did faculty development programs to really help them learn about technology, which put a pin in that. We'll come back to that here in a minute. Teachers, especially if you, are your teacher, you're probably going to want to listen to that part when I get to it. And I got to work on a lot of amazing projects. I managed courses for the College of Education and really had a good time doing it. And then also when I was at Ohio State, I did go back and get my master's and completed my doctoral work in instructional design and learning technologies, because I think it's really important that we eat our own dog food and learn as much as we can about the profession. And then I also opened my freelance business during that time. So I have had a freelance business since that time, and my freelance company is called The Learning Camel. I then transitioned into corporate learning leadership over at Silfex and managed a team of 8 incredible humans, and that's their picture. And that was my last day there, and it was still bittersweet. But I'm excited I get to go see them on Monday. So spoiler alert, if you're on my former team and watching this, I'm going to come see you on Monday. And currently I'm the director of learning development at Circular Health. I do not currently have a team. I am building it, and that is me with my CPR dummy Brady. So that's my kind of spiel in a nutshell of why I'm here to talk about this topic today. All right, so before we get into, I'm going to call the good stuff, I do think it's really critical we at least spend a little bit of time on the history of instructional design and like how did we kind of get here. So it really kind of started from the military, specifically World War II. We were really looking for a way to systematically upskill people quickly, because there was a lot of obviously chaos going on in the world at the time, and it really wasn't scalable to train everyone individually, but really how can you get mass information out and have people ready to do and execute whatever task it is that you give them. So that is kind of the system part of instructional design. It's kind of goes back to the military of where it began, because it really was something that they had to really focus on what that was. Now, after that, it did kind of start to go over into psychology. So about 10, 15 years after this kind of started, Robert Glasser coined this term of instructional system, and they were starting to see the connection between education and psychology. And so, there was kind of this need for these audio-visual professionals as we're thinking about how best do people kind of learn from, various interactions, or what additional support do they need. So they started to really think about, how does the brain kind of consume knowledge, and how best do people learn. And then we go to the 70s, and in the 70s, that's when there was a revolution of more kind of formal training in the workplace. It became way more common, and specifically you were looking at how you can peak performance. And so the neat thing about this is, back in the olden days, there was a little bit of, these apprenticeship programs, and apprenticeship programs were kind of, falling to the wayside during this time. So they really needed to find a way to effectively train people in the workplace, which is really, really critical. And then also in the 70s, we started to see people interested in doing this, and we saw some graduate programs pop up in instructional design, and people were, again, really, really interested in looking at the way that it works with like cognitive processing information and what that looks like for the individuals. And then going from the 20th to 21st century, we started using these things called computers. And if you don't know the picture, actually, I'll stop. Does anyone know who the picture of this man is? I'm just curious. If you know who this man is, put it in the chat, because I believe that this man, if it were for this man, we actually probably wouldn't have e-learning, although he is way too modest to say that. Yes. So it is Dr. Michael Allen, who is one of my knowledge crushes. And if you don't follow Dr. Michael Allen, you don't know who Dr. Michael Allen is, please change that, because we seriously would not have e-learning if it wasn't for all the great work that he has done in his research and just all the things he's done for the field. So Dr. Michael Allen really was one of the pioneers in kind of putting things together when it came to moving training from just the stand up, like kind of spray and pray model of thinking like, how can we integrate in technology? And I've listened to him talk, I don't know how many times. And one of my favorite things he talks about is like when he first got started, computers were the size of like rooms in houses, right? So imagine like trying to work with something like that to disseminate information versus now everyone has, access to various technology in their hands. So I think that's, really critical to kind of give homage to him. But basically, long story short, TLDR, if you're zoned out and you hate history, I'm sorry. I just, I have a platform here. I just wanted to take a moment to give you just a brief history of instructional design. Again, it's not exhaustive, but just think about it went from kind of this really regulated, formulated approach of like upskilling masses to almost this individualistic approach of, people can access things just in time, and there's always this way of accessing and getting information as they need. So all right, so history lesson is done. How many of you said, thank you, I'm done with history, I don't want any anymore, you're not going to hurt my feelings, that's fine, I'm tough, I promise. So you may have seen this webinar pop up and you're like, okay, I am really interested in transitioning into instructional design, and you may be wondering, how can I do that? So I want to start with this really interesting quote that I found that if you just hang with me for a moment, it might make sense. So I'll pause here, read this to you, and then if you agree with this, pop an emoji in the chat that a good teacher can make a world of difference in a student's life, impacting everything from the classroom learning to their long-term success. All right, I'm seeing some hearts and claps and agrees. Okay. I agree with that too. I mean, I go back and I think about teachers that have impacted me in my formal education, and it's really, really critical and really, I think, made me love learning, right? Because they really can have that impact on somebody. So remember this, and I'm actually going to change it just a little bit, okay? So here's what I'm going to change it to. You ready? A good instructional designer can make a world of difference in an employee's experience, impacting everything from their onboarding to their long-term success. So I share that, meaning that I think a lot of the same goals as far as, making the world a better place and impacting people appropriately. Obviously, I think there's a paramount there between, like a correlation between teaching and instructional design. But I am also not going to sugarcoat it. Even though if you are a teacher or you maybe have a background in something else, you are still changing careers. And so it is really important to think about things in a different perspective, upskill appropriately, and go from there. So I have worked on this and pulled out 10 different skills that I think a lot of teachers have that translate really well to instructional design. And I'm going to really focus on a few of these specifically, but I'm just going to kind of go over these, kind of overview. So, the big one here, some of the big ones here that I want to point out, collaborative. So you may be used to putting curriculum together, maybe with other people that have studied the same subject you have, whether that's history, mathematics, English, whatever. But when it comes to good instructional design, you have to collaborate kind of cross-functionally, meaning that you may have a subject matter expert that is, paired with you to help you make a course on how to make a widget. And that person may not be a good person to deal with. They may have an interesting personality, or they may be busy with other things. I have never, knocking on, not really need to knock on wood, but I've never worked in an organization where the sole role of the person helping me as a subject matter expert was only helping me. And conversely, I've never worked in a role where my sole focus and the only thing I did was only work on that one course for that subject matter expert. So there has to be a lot of give and take there. And I do think that teachers have a lot of what I'm going to call collaborative chops, because you're used to kind of collaborating with other individuals. So I think that definitely serves you well from an instructional design perspective. Another one is, you have a lot of patience, hopefully, right? There's a different issue that pops up in the classroom on a day-to-day basis. You likely have to think quickly on your feet to get things done. And I have a saying that Murphy's Law loves learning and development. I have never in my entire career had a perfect e-learning, a perfect training session, a perfect presentation. In fact, I know 2 things I've already messed up today during even this session. And just the patience with yourself and the patience with others is definitely something that will serve you well in this career shift, because you will find that a lot of people want things instantaneously. Okay, so you may fall into your first role and you may get a message from somebody like, hey, I want you to fill out and build this like quickly. I need it now. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because that can happen, but then you have to figure out, what's the need that's going on here? Why does this person really want it now? And having kind of the patience to deal with that, and then also being able to bring out the best in others, I think is also something that teachers do very well that can help them in their instructional design career. Couple other ones, empathy, of course, right? You get close to your students, obviously, and you get to know a little bit about them and their families and their lives. And a good teacher can really make a positive impact. And I argue a good instructional designer can also make a positive impact. But I see time and time and time again, so many, especially new instructional designers, fall into the trap of taking what the subject matter expert says as the law. That's it. If you can, and I realize that it can be a barrier in some organizations, you need to get to the people that's actually going to be at the end of that learning experience, whoever they are. So whoever it's for, you need to actually talk to people doing the job. You need to actually get a sense for what it is that they do. One of my favorite things to make, and this is kind of a dying dark art, but if I have one mountain that I'm going to die on this year, I want to make this a big deal again, is a task analysis. And what you do with a task analysis is quite simply you deconstruct what the work of someone does. And you can do that through observation. You can do that through, quick little interviews. I mean, I think observation is gold star, but obviously I realize that we live in a time now where we are geographically displaced and we may not be able to watch and observe and travel the way that maybe we did pre-pandemic. So I definitely always think that's the gold star, but really understanding, not only is what that they're doing, but why they do it. You would maybe be surprised, not be surprised about how many people, when you ask them, hey, why'd you do that? Oh, well, so-and-so told me to. And then you get in this weird thing of, oh, well, if so-and-so told you to do, is that what is actually appropriate to be done on the job? Is that how our organization wants people to do it? Are we following our policies and procedures appropriately? And really getting a sense for that, I think, is really critical. Oh, Suzette, you do job analysis. I'd love to talk more. It is grueling, but I'm a weird person. I like it. I think there's nothing more satisfying than kind of extrapolating all this information, right? And then obviously, with some of these other ones, I'm going to go into detail here, but I really just want to pause and ask, what do you all think here? Like, do you think that these are 10 transferable skills that maybe you already have if you are a teacher, or maybe did I miss something? Yep, somebody got the IO there, industrial org psychology. All right, cool. All right, sounds like some of you all like some of these, so good. All right, so I'm going to continue, and I know I kind of highlighted some of them, but I am going to add in a couple more here with just spending some time here. So, I think it's really critical, the communication piece, for several reasons, right? So one, we talk to everyone, right? So whatever we build usually touches, it could touch maybe one little part of the organization, but it could touch everyone in the organization. So being able to talk to everyone in an organization is super, super critical. I will be vulnerable here and share with you, I am actually in real life decently introverted, but I think through my work in learning and development, it has actually brought me out of my shell more and has made me a better communicator. But I also think that communication is one of those things that everyone thinks they do well, but maybe they don't realize that they need some assistance. So I think communication is something that we can all grow on, right? And then also too, I shared with the personalities, and I think that is, again, another critical part. Is a lot of times you can't pick your subject matter expert. Your subject matter expert is who is assigned based on their seniority or based on their familiarity with the project, or they might be the person that has the lightest workload that can give you the time. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It definitely can be difficult. It can be really, I don't know, eye-opening to see how people think of what we do. It is, I will be the first to tell you, I think a lot of the stuff out there about instructional design is very romanticized. You read about something like Addy and you think, oh, I can go in and execute Addy. But then you might be in an organization that's like, listen, we don't have time to do the analysis. We need it today. And if you don't do it, it's your job. That's happened. And so you being realistic here, not every learning experience you build is going to have this nice timeline that allows you to do everything that you need to do. You have to kind of pick your battles. And there's times that, you're like, well, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, wish I could have had more time to do that better. But, you just kind of take it for what it is. And then you have to kind of go back and reevaluate going forward. So I'm keeping it real here. I don't want to sugarcoat anything for you. I definitely don't want to scare anybody, but I do think that there's a lot of advice, especially on social media right now, that just makes everything seem like zippity doo dah. And a lot of times it is, but there's sometimes that it's not. And communication is really critical for everyone, especially if you're an instructional designer, to keep that going. Another big one is having this kind of engaging, personable personality. I will tell on myself here, I have picked up a love of corny jokes throughout my career because it's something that I can easily break the ice with people. So one of my favorites is, did you all hear who is getting the 2022 Nobel Prize? It's being awarded to a scarecrow because he was outstanding in his field. Yeah, so I can't see the eye rolls through here. That's fine. Maybe you think it's funny. Maybe you don't. That's fine. But I pick that up because that's just a nice little way to break the ice. I'm also a sports and video game fan, so I can talk NFL football. I could talk Apex Legends. So just being yourself and being authentic and putting yourself out there. I cannot tell you how many relationships it is so critical to building in order to get work done, and especially in a corporate environment. So having a personality, bringing your authentic self to work is actually a really good thing. And I think teachers obviously have to think about how to keep it fun and engaging for all types of folks that enter their classrooms, right? So that relational equity that you build in your company will help you move mountains when you need it. And I cannot tell you how far just a few words of kindness can go. Just thanking people for their time, if they reschedule something, thanking them for the flexibility. I know this sounds really, really basic, but I cannot tell you how just a small little dose of kindness and just being professional can really help you with your instructional design projects. It really can. And then this is a huge one, right? I feel like teachers do a great job of value real world learning. Any math teachers in the house? Any math teachers? Because I was the kid, I'm sorry, that, well, how's this apply to the real world? I don't want to know algebra. I don't want to do this, right? And I'm sure a lot of math teachers and, folks, other teachers as well, have been able to apply a lot of the concepts of mathematics, English, history, whatever, to the real world, right? And so to me, that is the best type of assessment that you can build in a learning experience in a corporate environment, because people don't usually get, I'm going to call it time off, I'm going to use that in quotations, to actually go through a learning experience. A lot of times they're distracted, their Slack is going, they're getting buzzed on their phone, their emails popping off. And so you're really fighting this distraction battle. And I'm sure this is also something that you've dealt with as teachers, right? That you may have students who are distracted. So being able to loop them back in, and then also being able to show the value of what the content is and mapping it back to what they're doing is super, super critical. There's a book that I highly, highly recommend. If you haven't read it, please do. It's called Map It by Kathy Moore. That is a gold book. You need to read it. I think it's a must read for anybody looking to get into this industry. But one big thing that Kathy Moore talks about in that book is that if you can't tell what somebody needs to do with the information, then you don't need to have it in your learning experience. And so thinking about how does all this content relate back to the widget maker or the telemarketer or the frontline manager or the salesperson is super, super important. You know why most people hate compliance training? Because it's a content dump and they can't relate it back to them. Well, I'll never be in a situation where I see someone sexually harass somebody, or I'll never be the person that clicks the suspicious link in the email. But then if you make it more real life in that it's impacting their company, it's impacting their coworker, and they see themselves in the learning experience, and you make it real world, then it's going to be more sticky, it's going to be more authentic, and they're going to have a better experience than the content dump that a lot of us are probably used to. So all right, so talked a little bit about the history. I talked a little bit about, if you're a teacher, what are some of those good transferable skills that you should really be elevating and amping up if you are on the job market. Now let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about what employers are looking for in getting a job. So again, I have experience as a job seeker and also as a hiring manager, but I was really also extremely curious. If you know me, I post jobs on LinkedIn a lot to help other people find their first maybe instructional design opportunity or new opportunity for them. And I read a lot of job descriptions, and I wanted to actually formalize it and do some research around it. And specifically, I wanted to know, what do job postings actually tell us about what an instructional designer is? And I pitched the idea. I am part of a research group at Ohio State, and here's my amazing colleagues who I love, and we work together on building out this research study based on what is it that people actually do. What are employers looking for based on job descriptions? And then we actually compared this to a model called the ATD capability model. It's the TD capability model, talent development capability model. And we're really interested in what that looked like. So what we decided is, I think it's really important to kind of have this inclusion criteria of what it is that they're looking for. So we wanted to make sure that we had some kind of uniformity, because as you know, some job descriptions are little mini novels, and some of them are like, work here, apply here now, right? So these were kind of our criteria funnel. So we needed something that was a full-time job, had to have instructional design in there somewhere. We did focus on the United States because that is the job market we know best. The entire research team is based in the United States. We really looked for 5 different job duties. So again, going through the description of what it is that you're looking for, what is it that you actually need to do. And we looked for required and then preferred qualifications. So we started gathering job descriptions that had all those, but to stay in our research, it had to have all of those little buckets. And so just to give you a sample, this is pretty much what we did. We listed them out. We had a company. We said what database that it came from. And so we actually listed them out. And again, I know I'm getting kind of in the weeds here, but I swear I think it's important for you to understand the research process. I see a lot of people out there saying that they're doing research, but they're not doing research. They're just putting content together and saying they're doing research. So we listed it in sets of 25, and then we went in and rated, and then we rated it based on the words in the job description to the talent development capability model. And overall, we had like an 88% agreement. Actually, most of those discrepancies were from me because I think I thought way too much about some of them, and I brought in some of my experience outside of just looking at the model. So I'll blame myself there. I was the one that messed up some of that, so that's on me. So what this looks like, and this is the model if you want to look at it, and I believe you can access it going to the ATD website, which is atd.org. You can go to the capability model and dive in. They have this great self-assessment tool that I highly recommend that you can go in, answer questions, and then it will tell you what areas that you may have some kind of a competency in, some areas that you may want to continue to upskill in. And then the nice thing is that they have produced resources that will crosswalk over. So if you identify an area of opportunity for you, you can learn more about how you can upskill in it, which is pretty neat. So of the different jobs that we went through, the top 5 here were instructional design, which, you know, hashtag no duh, right? You probably expected that. But then it was training, delivery, and facilitation. So actually communicating, kind of putting it out there. The technology application. So remember when I was talking a little bit about my experience, how I said I used to do faculty development and help faculty kind of deal with technology. If you feel good about that, then instructional design is a beautiful fit for you, because I'm seeing more and more, especially the last couple of years, of developing learning experiences around using software and using learning technologies, because people like to have a good baseline going forward. And sometimes that's included with the vendor's customer success program, but not always. A lot of times it has to be made in-house. Even actually today I was working on a learning experience about this for a software that we're using to help schedule our frontline healthcare staff. So it just kind of depends on the day and time. Oh, look at there. We've seen that before, haven't we? Communication. So, of course, you know, not only are job seekers looking for good communicators, but you have probably a good transferable skill set of that. And oh, look at here, another one, collaboration and leadership. So they want people that will work with other people across the business to get it done, right? Now, what I found fascinating about this is the bottom 3 were knowledge management, lifelong learning, and business insight. So what is really fascinating to me is often if you ask instructional designers, what value do you bring to your organization? More likely than not, a lot of them is like, well, I help the business be better, right? So I found that to be pretty fascinating. So I knew you were going to ask it, so I was ready. So the you may be asking about the tools, products, models. You know, what are some of those like hot ticket things that you saw out there in these job descriptions? So here are the big ones. Addy, that's should be something that you've probably heard by this point. It's a framework to help you kind of plan out a project. I will warn you, this is a mild soapbox. I think Addy is not exclusive to instructional design, because you could follow Addy to do, I don't know, make a paper airplane or make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So, you know, I don't fall in the trap of thinking that Addy is exclusive to instructional design. It's just a baseline kind of framework to think about how you would conduct a project, right? SCORM, I thought I saw a couple people ask about what SCORM is. Trying to think of a scalable cloud object reference. Forgot the M. But anyway, long story short, when you create e-learning, when you export it to be put into a learning management system, you're likely going to be using what's called a SCORM package. And basically all that means is when you're exporting it, it makes a zip file when it downloads. And then through that zip file, then you will upload it into your learning management system. So it will score assessments appropriately, interact the way that you built it. And so that way the person on the other end can enjoy it the way that it was intended. Adobe Creative Cloud, that is a suite of various software from Photoshop to After Effects to, I really like Adobe Rush and Adobe Spark, although I think Spark just changed its name, the video tools. So these are basically design tools that help you manipulate, create graphics, flyers, all kinds of things. Canvas is a learning management system. Canvas is more higher education. I don't know too many corporate places that use Canvas. I think that the company that makes it is called Instructure. Their corporate LMS, I believe, I just had it. It's called Bridge. Yes. So if you see that, that's the same company. PowerPoint is pretty ubiquitous, right? Blackboard learning management system, again, that one's more predominantly higher ed. And then Beyond, which is a tool that you can use to make cute little animated videos. If you're interested in learning more about that, I have a shameless plug here in a moment if you want to get better at Beyond. So basically, here's the thing. I think the tech is important, but I see too many people focusing on the tech only and they can't put together a good product. Meaning, I think it's important for you to know how to write, how to put curriculum together well, and how to scaffold, how to basically put together material in a way that someone can learn. If you need help with that, I recommend just taking time, practicing, going through that. Once you have that down pat, then I recommend learning the technologies, because you can have the prettiest, most overworked product in a technology, but then if the content doesn't make sense, it's going to be a failure, right? So I say focus on the content first and then learn the learning technologies. All right. If you want to read this, by the way, just another shameless plug in here, I'll type it in the chat as well. I made a quick little link, or if you connect with me on LinkedIn, it's on my LinkedIn. If you like job research, if you don't, that's cool too. But if you want to check it out, that is the full article there, and it's non-paid wall, so you can read it. Okay. So you may be wondering, okay, let's say that I'm going in and I'm applying for this job and I want an interview. What are some of your big tips here? So the first one is, I think you shouldn't lie about your experience. And what I mean by that is, I think it's awesome to pull out your transferable skills of if you've done curriculum development, if you've done, collaboration on projects, if you've done all this. But don't say you're a certified project manager. Or one that I saw a couple months ago that I got my pitchfork out about, someone said that they were a licensed instructional designer. A licensed. And so when you say you have a license, that is a government, like state regulated thing, and it doesn't exist. And I think they were maybe confused on the terminology, but even if they didn't mean it the way that it did, it is technically a falsification on a job application. So that would be an immediate do not hire for me. So don't try to puff yourself up or make yourself like sound better, right? I think it's really important to just be yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, me as a hiring manager, I will tell you the number one thing that I look for. Are you ready for this? I look for your heart. That's it. So I think a lot of this stuff can be learned on the job. I think you can have a nice background. But at the end of the day, if you're a rotten tomato of a person, I don't want to work with you. And I don't want to bring you into the org. I don't want you to corrupt the team. I don't want to deal with that drama, right? I got too much stuff going on. At the end of the day, I care about who you are as a person. And it's very clear to me within the first 5 or 10 minutes of a job interview, I can see, is this person the real deal? Are they trying to, inflate something more than they are? Or are they actually a genuinely good human being? And I'll say, I'm not the only hiring manager out there that feels that way, you all. So it's not just me. There's other ones out there, I assure you. So yeah, just be yourself. You don't have to be fake. Just be yourself. I think that's really, really critical. I am hiring, Valerie. Yes. So another point I want to make is do not put any intellectual property in your portfolio. Another great example, I was hiring for a position in my last role, and I had a really great candidate, looked awesome on paper. I looked at their portfolio. They did some contracting for the US military, and in their portfolio, I saw full plans for the jets that the military builds. I saw plans for the base it was, and it made me feel really, really, really gross because the industry I was in prior was semiconductors. It was very competitive. And I will tell you, my non disclosure agreement at that company was way more wicked than the one I signed when I was at Amazon. I mean, it's a highly competitive business. So my immediate reaction is if I hire this person and they leak or share some of the content that we make about how we make the product that we make and how we kind of do all this stuff, it would be my head on a platter, and I don't want to take that risk. So I think it's really critical in your portfolio. And again, this is my opinion, right? But I want to see the person. So don't feel like you have to make something corporate-y, right? I reviewed a portfolio the other day where somebody did a cute little interaction about how to bathe your dog appropriately. It was really cute and whimsical, well done. And I found out this person actually rescues a certain breed of dogs on the side and like volunteers and helps match them. And I remember that person because of that, because it wasn't the same old, this is why you shouldn't sexually harass someone at work thing that I see all the time. So please don't be afraid to bring your own personality in here. It's very refreshing to see. It stands out in a good way. And then the other point I'll give is don't feel like your whole portfolio only has to be that end product. I want to know your design philosophy. I want to see how you've messed up. So if you have, refreshed anything or you've done anything different, I'd like to see where you got feedback. Maybe like a storyboard would be great. How you evaluate a product, how you're making it more accessible. These are things I don't see enough in portfolios. And these are the things that make you a great candidate for an instructional design role, because it tells me you're thinking more than just the final product. You're thinking about the journey. And when you're showing me your journey, that shows me that you are open to, again, the feedback, because I will also tell you another thing. In your first couple roles, I think getting that harsh feedback when it's your baby and you put all this work into it, it can be difficult and people will cut you straight down, right? And so you have to iterate and you have to let things go and you have to continue to kind of move it along, right? So that's my little sidebar about portfolio. And then, of course, most important, grill them too. I want, anytime anyone interviews with me, I want them to grill me right back, because it needs to be a mutual fit. Because no matter how great the company sounds or how amazing the salary is, your leadership will make or break that position for you. Your leadership will advocate for you, or your leadership will be your worst enemy in that organization. So you need to see, is this a person that I can see myself learning with? Is this a person that's got my back? Is this a person that will take care of me? Because that is also extremely critical in the success of a job. All right. Another big one is, as you're growing, I think it's super important to network with other professionals. And, I will admit this is probably the biggest regret I have in my career. I lived under a rock the first 6 years of my career. I was working at Amazon and didn't think I really needed to talk to anybody else or know anything. I was in my own little kind of bubble, if you will. And then when I moved to a different organization, different state, found out very quickly I needed to learn and grow as well, right? So here's some of the reasons why you might want to network or how to get started. So first one is, I think it's really important to build social capital with other people. You never know who somebody will give you a referral in the future or give you work. Actually, the other day I had somebody that, gosh, I haven't talked to in like 2 years, send me a message on a lead for a contract. I mean, just out of the blue. And, had I been rude to that person or, kind of pushed them off, then maybe that wouldn't have happened. Another way is, it really helps people if you put together resources for them, curation. A lot of my posts, especially on social media, are curated. Things that I found across across the web that I think add value to the conversation. You never know when that's something that somebody could be looking for. And finally, I think it's really critical to use networking and social media as a way of upskilling and learning yourself. I love following people that have skill sets that I don't have. I follow a lot of graphic designers on LinkedIn. I love to see like their process. I love it when they do the little time lapse of them drawing different characters. I'm always fascinated by that. So don't be afraid to connect with people maybe outside of learning development, right? To again, kind of grow some of those other skills. If you're looking to supercharge and connect with just 3 amazing professionals to kind of help you on your journey, they did not pay me for this, I swear. These are just 3 amazing individuals that I can't say enough good things about. Is, if you're looking for someone that is really open to helping you with accessibility, Nick Tillum is a great contact. You could connect with him on LinkedIn. Just look him up. Another one is Ricky Fisher. He's a former teacher like you all. He's a former English teacher, and now he is a freelancer and he's killing it. So if you're looking to particularly freelance, he's a great contact. And then Jacqueline Hutchinson is another lady who is in Canada, and she has her own successful learning development business. She's definitely someone I look up to in the industry as well, and she's a Beyond expert. She's getting ready to launch like a Beyond workshop, and if you want to come learn with me, I still like to learn too. I'm actually going to participate in that workshop as an attendee, so I'd love for you to join me there and connect with Jacqueline if you're interested in that. All right. There we go. Okay, so now the fun part, answering your questions. I have 2 questions that I got from social media, so I'll answer those real quick, and then I have 10 minutes to answer yours. All right, so this one came up about resume and portfolio, and somebody said that they're spending a lot of time on their portfolio, but they want to make sure that their resume competes against the experience, right? And so what I want to say about this is, as a hiring manager, when I get a resume and portfolio, I crosswalk the 2 of them. So for example, on your resume, you say, I can do articulate storyline, I can do Beyond, I can do TechSmith Camtasia. When I walk over to that portfolio, I need to see examples of that. If I don't see examples of that, that's a problem, because your resume is you're telling me what, and then your portfolio is you're showing me the how, right? So there needs to be a correlation there. So my big thing on your resume, make sure whatever you have on there, you can back it up in that portfolio, and there's evidence of you showing the skill set of that on your resume to your portfolio. So to me, that's how you compete. Just do what you say, because there's so many people out there that put so much alphabet soup on their resume, and I don't see any evidence in it in their portfolio. And I'm like, okay. All right. Another one is, is the field getting too saturated? This is a great one. There's a lot of people interested in it. I will tell you from my perspective, no, the field is not being saturated. And here's why. There are a lot of industries in the world, and all of us use our services. All of them use our services, whether it's retail, hospitality, healthcare, manufacturing, whatever that looks like. It can, everybody needs us. And I will tell you, there are a lot of people on the market, but there are a lot of people on the market that haven't invested in upskilling themselves. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of people posting that they can't get a job, or, they don't understand why they're not getting callbacks or whatever. It's very evident if someone has taken the time to really upskill themselves. There's a lot of people just trying to jump over thinking they don't need to do anything. Come on, that's probably not the best mindset to have, because you are technically switching careers. Is it kind of adjacent and there's some transferable skills? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you're still changing your career there. All right. Now I want to go to questions, and it looks like there are several of them here. Okay. All right. So I have a question here from John. And John is asking, what would you say is the starting salary for a new instructional designer? Oh, this is a wonderful question. Okay. I'm going to speak from the United States perspective, because again, that's where I'm currently in, and that's the market that I know the best. I think it would depend on your geographic location as well as your industry. So I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I'm in the Midwest. For a brand new, let's say you have no experience, this is like your first formal instructional design role, I would look for that to start between probably 65 to 80,000 US dollars. If you are in like a higher cost of living geographic location, like in New York City or the Bay Area, it may be a little bit closer to 6 figures. But admittedly, I don't know that market because I don't live in those areas. But I'd say for the Midwest, the South would be a little bit less, depending, again, if you live in like in the Atlanta metro area or something. But if you like live in the South, I think it might be a little bit lower. So maybe like, 55 to 75, something like that. And then I think in the West Coast, again, depending on, if you're up in like Seattle, Portland, obviously those will be a little bit higher. But like if you're in, I don't know, like Utah or Idaho, I'd say it would probably be pretty similar to the Midwest. So, but that's just for entry level, of course. All right. Next question. Is there a value in a degree in instructional design, or is learning on the job sufficient? If I had $1 for every time I was asked this question, I wouldn't have to do anything the rest of my life. So I am formally educated in it. I did it because I love to learn. I think that obviously it matters if you're going into higher education. I've seen a lot of higher education IDs actually require a PhD. So if you are going in the higher education market, I think that it matters. Now, I do think there's a lot of ways to kind of cobble together a learning plan that works for you, but ultimately, end of the day, investing in a degree is one, expensive, and two, it takes this thing called time. And time is the most precious resource on planet Earth. I mean, you can't get a refund on your time. So you ultimately have to make that decision based on factors for that. I have a couple videos on my YouTube channel about that, about what questions you should ask if you're evaluating programs, whether it's a ID Academy, boot camp, or higher education. But my blanket statement is, I honestly don't have a degree requirement on my job postings because I don't care if you have a degree in it or not. Again, I care, are you a good person? Are you committed to helping people in the organization? If we can get there and you have some skills to go ahead and dive in, I want to talk to you. So that's just my own opinion. All right. Question about what would you recommend as a starting point for freelancing? Connect with me, Amanda, if you haven't. I'm actually doing another series on this about how to start your side hustle in freelancing. I recommend, dipping your toe in it to start versus just kind of diving in, because there's these things like, oh, how do I get clients and how can I, get work? So I think I'm having that in a couple weeks, but connect with me and I can share those details, as I don't remember off the top of my head when I'm having it. But I did a session on that at ATD ICE a couple weeks ago, and it was very well received. And so I wanted to do that again to help people. All right. Another question. Can you define the difference between L&D, looking through the job postings, L&D specialist, instructional designer, learning experience designer? All right. I wish I could. It's very highly dependent on how the organization defines it and the taxonomies of the organization. So one big question you'll want to ask when looking at these are, where do they sit in the organization? Sometimes a learning development specialist may sit in an HR function. They may just do compliance stuff all day. Whereas a learning development specialist in operations may work on building out onboarding or training for the front line. It just totally depends. And I wish that there was more uniformity around that. When it comes to learning experience design, I feel like that person not only writes all the curriculum, but then they also build the e-learning. I have a book coming out about that next year through ATD Press, so stay tuned for that. But I wish there was a uniform answer, but unfortunately it depends. All right. Okay. Casey asked, any advice for creating a portfolio if your work's proprietary for a current company? Yes. So I had a team member in my last role who made this amazing learning experience about the ways to handle the material that we made in my previous organization. And they were big, round, disc looking things, right? And it has a hole in the middle. And I said, hey, that kind of looks like a donut. So she made a copy of it and then took out all the proprietary information of the particular experience and then made it about how to make various donuts. And it turned out really cute. And that's what she ended up for her portfolio. So it used the same kind of animations and used the same kind of way that she built it, but it just had completely different information in it. It wasn't about that proprietary product, but she changed it for it to be donuts. So that's one way. The other way too is when you're working, you have all these constraints, right? Of what people want to put in, what they say that you need to put in, whatever. I recommend if you have the time, just build your dream project and put that in your portfolio and let it tell a little bit about you. All right, I'm going to scoot over here because it looks like we're coming up on time. I'm trying to answer all these questions, but I want to make sure you all can connect with me. So there's all the places to connect with me. And I always like to say, tell someone that you love them today because you never know, tomorrow's not guaranteed. All right, I'll answer 2 more. Lightning round. Okay, so what are some good titles to put on for teaching experience? Can we add instructional designer, or is that not honest? My opinion, I don't think that's honest unless you actually had the role. What you could do is you could do a curriculum developer. If you wrote curriculum for your course, you could put facilitator 110% because you are facilitating the learning experience there. But instructional designer, I think, is a stretch unless you actually did do it for your school district. All right, let's see. This is hard to pick the last one. It's hard to pick the last one. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Okay. All right. So last one, between boot camps, higher ed degrees, my directors encouraged me to get some type of certification to add to my signature line. What do you suggest? Highly independent on what it is that you're interested in your current skill set. So I can't give a blanket endorsement, nor do I give a blanket endorsement. I think that's super shady because I don't know what your needs are. So I recommend maybe doing a self-analysis and seeing where it is that you want to grow, and then think about what will help you get there. All right. So with that, I think that's all that I have. I'm going to pop back over to the chat. I really appreciate everyone's time today. Really enjoyed being with you all. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much. I hope to connect with you soon. Please connect with other folks as well because they are a wealth of information. You'll find that, a couple of us, like if we put our heads together, like it's better than just one person. So I think it's really important to connect and grow with other people in the industry. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cara, for this wonderful presentation, the webinar. I think everyone is so excited. Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you, Cara. Goodbye.